Hello and welcome to the SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So in this episode I'm discussing the 2004 DreamWorks animated storybook comedy sequel, Shrek 2, as directed by Andrew Adamson, Kelly Asbury and Conrad Vernon. The movie follows the further adventures of Shrek, as voiced by Mike Myers, an ogre who is now happily married to Princess Fiona, as voiced by Cameron Diaz. However, no sooner than they return home from their honeymoon, they are summoned to meet with Fiona's parents in the land of far, far away. Only thing is, Shrek is not who Fiona was actually supposed to marry, and I don't think Fiona's even mentioned to them that she too is now an ogre, which, along with the fact that they held her away in a far, far off castle guarded by a dragon, the best part of her life, well, let's just say dinner is going to be somewhat interesting. So, all of this is made ever more complicated given the involvement of Fiona's scheming and conniving fairy godmother, as voiced by Jennifer Saunders, who expected her son, Prince Charming, as voiced by Rupert Everett, to have rescued and married Fiona instead of Shrek. Feeling somewhat out of place and wanting to do anything to make Fiona happy, Shrek turns to the fairy godmother to find that happily ever after, without realising just how diabolical her schemes run. Shrek, together with his ever-noble steed, Donkey, as voiced by Eddie Murphy, and newcomer Puss in Boots, as voiced by Antonio Banderas, faces a race against time to prove the kind of hero that he is, and win back Fiona's heart before he loses her to Prince Charming forever. Now, as far as sequels go, this one, for me, is one of those that firmly matches, if not exceeds, the quality, presence and magic of the first. It is one of those rare moments where those involved build on what had come before so succinctly to bring something so fantastically enjoyable that brings back and recaptures everything and more about what we loved about the characters and their story in the first place. It remains true to the storybook feel of the original, but again, like the original's twists kind of what we knew about such fairy tales into a complete cavalcade of colour, antics and adventure. This time around, from the start, this one is much wider in scope, both in terms of expanding the universe and kind of offering a more in-depth and heartfelt story. Much grander and much, much more meaningful, whilst at the same time exploring each of the characters' development such that, as absolutely hysterical as it is, provides for the backbone of a very emotional journey. This does exactly what a good sequel should, and given how perfect the original movie was, this is indeed the empire of the animation world. Or at least it certainly was at the time. With wider scope, it kind of gives more room for other characters to be integrated, and indeed many that briefly featured in the original get a bit more screen time here, which is amazing to kind of see, and and it plays out so well against the more inclusive backdrop of the movie. Myers and Murphy are totally back on top form, and their wisecracking banter totally brings this back home once again. Joined by Banderas this time around, there was a danger that it would perhaps become too top-heavy, too saturated with characters, especially those in the lead. But the dynamic, although somewhat kind of shifted, worked extremely well and provided a way of kind of mixing things up just enough, such that we didn't just end up repeating and recycling elements of the first movie. And more than worth a mention, I mean, there are some top names attached to this, including Julie Andrews, John Cleese, as Fiona's mother and father respectively, But indeed, it's Jennifer Saunders that actually really does steal the show this time around. She's excellent as the movie's primary villain. Such a U-turn on the typical fairy godmother expectation, So diabolical, so cunning, power-hungry and manipulative. It's a much more of a meta experience than the first two, with references kind of coming thick and fast and hidden in every corner of the screen, but using much more general parody and pop culture references than simply relying on sending up fairy stories and nursery rhymes, which of course it still does to great effect, but the general formula now integrates much more of a play on the wider world, which is, in all honesty, simply hilarious. It has a fantastic soundtrack once again, this time bringing more energy and charisma into the mix with a popping range of popular songs, and indeed a fantastic crescendo of a score, once again penned by Harry Gregson Williams, who recycles but rebuilds on the themes from the first movie to great effect. We have much more ambitious animation, deliberately more detailed, and certainly more epic against the backdrop of a much more meaningful story and immersive experience. It succeeds in developing a worthwhile story, even though, in all honesty, after the first movie, there really wasn't the need. This did a splendid job of adding substance that didn't just seem like it was a cash grab by the studio to kind of cash in on the original's success. I mean, it is, but it isn't, presenting its own emotional core, clever and witty dialogue, and simply having as much fun with the fairy tale concept it could. It's much more adventurous, much more dramatic, but also takes more time to evolve the story and its characters. At times it feels heavier than the first, yielding a bit more of a deeper, more rooted meaning perhaps, but in the end is still fantastically entertaining. All of this builds into one of the best movie crescendos I think I have ever witnessed, in that as we move into the finale, Shrek and co launch an all-out assault against the fairy godmother in such an epic way, set to Jennifer Saunders reeling off a revamped version of Bonnie Tyler's classic 80s track, Holding Out for a Hero, but the whole way everything has kind of been put together is simply exhilarating to watch. Such a perfect mix of action, music and suspense. The choreography is brilliantly energetic. The movie itself is just worthwhile watching for that scene alone. Overall, this is about as perfect a sequel as you could probably wish for against the magic, the style and essence of the first, whilst still recapturing and retaining much of what made that first movie an absolute hit. They also choose to kind of further expand the universe in which the series is set, bringing further development of existing characters and a whole host of fantastically constructed new ones, which more than sell the magic once again. The banter is certainly on top form, as are the pop culture and meta references, which this time come thick and fast, literally peppered in every corner of the screen. It is quite the cavalcade of colour, exuberance and energy that really kind of brings the characters to life once more in a fantastically engineered adventure that simply delights every time. So that brings me to the end of this episode. Many thanks for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please do leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, trailer reactions and other movie related content. Absolutely loved having you at SciFirst Movie Talk. Definitely love to have you back. Most of all, just thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.